Welcome back to another episode of With a Grain of Salt. I am your host, Isaiah Salter, and I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in for yet another week. We are currently in my backyard, and I decided to do a podcast out here. I honestly should have been out here more often since I've been home, but better late than never, So this week's episode is going to be on the pressure to have it all figured out. I was thinking about different topics I wanted to talk about this week, and just what was heavy on my mind. And I think this concept of having everything figured out is something that was really circulating throughout my thoughts recently. I'm currently 26. I'm back home with my family right now, but I'm moving right back up to Syracuse, New York in a couple of weeks for an opportunity to collaborate with my alma mater and do some good stuff up there. And I think we all fall susceptible to feeling like we should have everything figured out at a certain time in our life. And, with me being 26, I feel like that's an age where a lot of us really start to feel the external pressure to have everything, every area of our life kind of right and put in the right box and all of these different things. And so I'm really just working on taking a step back from that and not allowing external expectations and other people's journeys to kind of get in the way of my own. I'm exactly where I need to be. I don't need to rush anything. I don't need to try to force anything. I just need to continue to take it day by day, step by step, trust in the journey, trust in the process, and believe that, if I continue to walk intentionally, walk aligned, or walk in alignment, that everything will work out because it will, right? Everything will work out because it will. So the first point says, the illusion of timelines in life milestones. It says we're raised to believe there's a perfect timeline. Graduate by this age, have your dream job by that age, be married, have kids, own a house. But the truth is, life doesn't follow a script. The pressure to be here or be there by a certain time is a cultural illusion, not a universal law. That's good. The pressure to be somewhere at a certain age is a cultural illusion, not a universal law. I think a lot of times because of the society we grew up in, we allow cultural illusions to become universal law in our life, when in reality, there is no universal law that says you have to be at a certain place at a certain time by a certain age and have all of these things figured out. No, that is something that we've created as a society, as a egotistical society, as a society that is fixated on external achievements and accolades and materialistic things. And so it could be very hard to kind of break free from that paradigm, but this is why you have to start living incredibly intentionally and cultivate a relationship with yourself in the sense of understanding what's for you, what's not, and knowing you are on your own journey, because you are. You are on your own journey, right? These gnats finna get me. Well, it says, people measure their progress based on others' visible milestones, but forget that growth happens invisibly and within. So often we judge our growth based off of other people's milestones, social media, and what we can show tangibly externally. But a lot of the growth and most of the growth happens internally. It happens within, and it's invisible to the naked eye, right? It's not something that you can see in the moment. It's something that you look back in hindsight and see how all of the growth was taking place through the times where you were worrying, through the times where you were anxious, through the times where you were trying to have everything figured out, right? And that's the real growth. So just understanding that can help you to, take a deep breath, relax, and know that you are exactly where you need to be, my brothers and sisters. And your boy is out here sweating because it's 85 degrees, even though I was waiting for the sun to go down and it's still 85, 84 degrees, and I sweat easy, but it's all right. We got to get it done. It's authentic. That's what this podcast is about, being authentic. So it says some of the most impactful people didn't arrive until much later in life because they took the time to live, learn, and align. A lot of times, things are going to take longer for you because you need to live. You need to learn. You need to go through things in order to align, right? And going through those things takes time, right? And so, trying to have your whole life figured out by 25, by 30, by 35, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. And I know it's very hard to do that, but something I've learned from, really like studying just society and looking at, people I've grown up with and people I've been around is that you never really have your life figured out. I even talk to, I really ask, older people for a lot of advice, mentors and just people that I come across. And that's a question I always ask is like, what's some advice you would give to somebody in their 20s, somebody in their 30s? And they always say, relax. You have time. You don't need to figure everything out. Sometimes they'll even say, I'm still figuring things out. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. Growth is a never-ending journey, right? And so I think because of the society we grow up in and the environments we grow up in, the expectations we grow up, kind of hovering over our life, we create this end destination point for growth that we have envisioned in our mind, and that is what we're chasing after, right? And we think that once we get that thing, once we're with that person, once we're living here, once we're doing these things, then I'll be done. But it's like there is no such thing as done when it comes to growth. There's no such thing as finished when it comes to transformation and change. You're constantly evolving. You're constantly, growing into newer and aligned versions of yourself. So if you have it in your mind to get somewhere to be done, you're already setting yourself up for failure. There is no done in this journey. There is just growth. And growth does not have a finish line. Growth is a journey. And it's just that, a journey. That is it, right? We've talked about it a lot. I mentioned it on the last podcast with my mom, but comparison really is a thief of joy. Something I've learned about comparison, especially with social media, whenever I'm constantly looking at what other people are doing, I feel like I'm behind, and because I feel like I'm behind, I feel worse about myself, and because I feel worse about myself, I start to do things out of that emotional state of not feeling good about myself, which leads to doing more things that make me feel worse about myself, and it compounds. And you see how it just creates this very, very limited loop in the wrong direction, right? And that's why you have to be so intentional with where your attention goes, because where your attention goes, energy follows. If you are constantly giving your attention to looking at everybody else's life, that is what you are giving your energy to. So now when it comes to actually doing things for you, you're not going to have any energy for that. You're not going to feel good about yourself. You're going to feel like you're behind. You're going to feel like you're inadequate because you are constantly giving your energy to other people's timelines, other people's journeys, feeling like you are behind, feeling like you are not good enough because you are not where they are, where she is, where he is. In actuality, you are on your own unique timeline. You don't need to worry about anybody else's journey other than yours because nobody else is on your journey. And I'm really talking to myself on this. You know what I mean? Like nobody else is on your journey, bro. Nobody. So just keep doing you. Gain inspiration, find admiration in other people's journey, but don't fall into the trap of comparison. Don't fall into the trap of envy. Don't fall into the trap of jealousy. Don't allow your ego to drive your vehicle and make you start feeling like you're not good enough because you don't have that, or you're not where that person is, or you're not with that person, or you don't look like that. It's a very dangerous game that we play with ourselves, and so that's why, spaces like these are so important, just as, calm, gentle reminders, to kind of bring yourself back to center and stay aligned on the track. Because, it's like I always say, it's not about being perfect. It's about progression. And with intention and awareness, you can always stay on the right track. You may sway sometimes, but because you set the intention, you have the road. And because you've cultivated awareness, you can catch yourself when you're swaying and bring yourself back. And that is a beautiful thing. Come on. Point number 2, the myth that certainty equals success. A lot of people chase clarity because they think it'll make them feel safe. But needing to have it all figured out actually limits growth. Real growth often starts in confusion, not clarity. It's okay to not know. It's the doorway to what's next. A lot of people correlate being clear with growth. So if they're confused, or if they're lacking clarity, or they're not knowing, or they're not sure, they feel like they're not growing. Growth happens the most in the unknown. Growth happens the most when you're confused in life and you decide to lean into it rather than run from it. When you shift your perspective on being confused, being lost, to opportunities and parts of growth, it shifts how you navigate those things. But a lot of us, we grow up thinking that growth means everything's working in your favor, everything's clear, everything feels aligned, everything feels good. So when it's the opposite of that, or when it's not congruent with those things, you think you're not growing, but that's the furthest thing from the truth, because real growth often starts in confusion. It's usually the times where we hit rock bottom, right? Or we become aware of something that we hadn't been aware of before. or we go through a really tough situation, right? Or we're really confused or lost in life, where it sparks that initiation to want to grow, to want to change, to want to transform, to want to be better, right? And that's usually where it starts. So whenever you're going through those seasons where maybe you feel a little bit confused, you may feel a little lost, don't view that as you not growing. View that as part of your growth. And actually be grateful for those times, because it may be the season that really pushes you into the most transformation in your life. I know for me, when I went through the most transformation in my life, I was the most confused. I was the most lost. Why do I have to go through this? Why am I dealing with all these mental health struggles? Why am I ending up in the hospital? Why am I on medication? I feel so lost. Who am I, right? All these things that were coming from a place of confusion. But that's what birthed the most growth in my life. So I'm incredibly grateful looking back on it. It says, certainty is often a survival mechanism, but faith, creativity, and true purpose often live in the unknown. This is why shifting your perspective on the unknown is so important. The unknown is not something to be afraid of. The unknown is where possibility and opportunity lie, right? Our ego makes us feel like we need to know how everything is going to work out for it to be safe. But in actuality, creativity and faith all lie in the unknown. And you have to be willing to embrace it. And how do you embrace it? You got to shift your perspective on it. How do you shift your perspective on the unknown? One, you need to go back in the cookie jar. Look back in the times of your life where things have been uncertain. You've had to lean into the unknown, and it's worked out better than you could have ever imagined. That's the first thing. The second thing is have an honest conversation with yourself, right? Listen to people or things that can help you to start looking at things from a different, lens. Listen to the With a Grain of Salt podcast so you can start taking the unknown with a grain of salt and seeing it as a blessing and not a burden. Because that's exactly what it is. It is a blessing in disguise. It may not feel that way. It may not look that way. But blessings often don't feel the best in the moment, and they often don't look like blessings in the moment. That's why you have to live in faith. Come on. That's why you have to live in faith. It says you don't need to know what's next to take the next step. You do not need to know what's ahead to take the next step. You just got to trust, right? God, I don't know what's up the road, but I'm going to trust and take this next step. Every next step you take is an act of faith and devotion to your true path. And that's a beautiful thing to know. Every step you take is an act of faith and devotion to your true path, right? If you really want to walk in faith, you have to be willing to take steps, even in a direction that is uncertain, even in a direction that is unknown, right? Because faith does not require clarity. Faith requires trust. And that is a very, very big distinction that you need to be able to make in your life. A lot of people say they live in faith, but only when it's convenient. Faith is not about convenience. Faith is about trust and being in that state throughout wherever you are in your life, right? Faith is not about convenience. It's not supposed to be easy. Faith is not supposed to be easy. Faith is going to require courage. Faith is going to require bravery. Faith is going to require stepping into the unknown, embracing uncertainty, right? Faith is going to require you to feel very uncomfortable emotions and still lean into the thing anyway. So now, understanding that those things are going to be tied to faith, when you start to want to live out a life of faith and live in faith and those things arise, you're not going to be so quick to run the other direction, because you're going to understand, no, this is a part of me living in faith. I just have to lean into it with grace. I have to lean into it with curiosity, like a kid, right? When you're a child running around, you're just curious, right? And as we grow up and we get programmed and conditioned, that childlike spirit diminishes over time. But it's still within you. It's very quiet, right? You've kind of lost touch with it. But you always have the ability to reconnect. And once you reconnect with that childlike spirit and you start to go through this life with a curious mindset, it's going to change everything. Because now, even when you're going through struggle, even when you're going through heartbreak, even when you're going through a setback, you're curious as to what can the opportunity in this be? Where's the growth in this? Where are the lessons in this, right? That curious mindset allows you to really carve out those things, right? But when you have a stagnant mindset, when your ego is in the driver's seat, right? When you have a scarcity mindset, when you want to control everything, the moment something kind of breaks that barrier of, or that illusion of security that you've created, you start to tweak out, right? So we've created this illusion of security because we're using our past experiences to live in a predictable future, right? So we can at least have some sense of control over what's going to happen in our life. But real growth is going to require you to let go of that false sense of control and step into the unknown. So the moment you start to want to live in faith and step into the unknown, it's going to feel like a direct attack on your security. But you have to have the right perspective on these things. It is not because you're not safe. It's because your ego clings to the known. So the moment you step into the unknown, your ego is going to throw up all these emotions and all these feelings and all these thoughts on why you're not safe and why everything's not okay. But you have to be able to talk to your ego like you would a little kid, right? It's not something to fight with. It's something to collaborate with. It's something to converse with, excuse me. Converse. I don't know where I got conversate from, but I feel like that should be a word. But y'all get what I'm saying. Your ego is not something to fight. It's something to converse with. It's something to build with. It's something to work with. You know what I mean? Work with your ego. Don't fight it. Work with your ego. Don't fight it. Right? Point number 3, the quiet power of patience and alignment. This is beautiful. The world rewards speed, but your soul rewards alignment. Moving fast in the wrong direction doesn't get you further. It gets you lost. The real flex in your 20s and 30s is patience. It's knowing that moving slow and steady toward what's aligned is truly the most powerful thing. It's not about speed. It's about alignment. In our society, we think going fast, doing more leads to the right things. But in actuality, you can go fast and do more in the wrong direction. If you are not aligned, you're just creating more confusion and more frustration in your life, right? And your ego makes you think that going fast and doing more is the right way. But this is where you have to take the driver's seat. And you have to understand that, no, it's not about moving fast. It's about moving in alignment, right? It's not about doing more. It's about being in tune with who I truly am and operating from that place, right? And when you're actually tapped in to the energy of alignment, right, and you're really moving in that, a prerequisite of that or a byproduct of that is patience. You're just going to naturally start to be more patient with life because alignment doesn't rush. Alignment doesn't attach itself to all of these things externally. Alignment doesn't attach itself to outcomes and destinations of when things need to happen or how things need to happen. No. Alignment is a beautiful energy to be in. Alignment is a very magnetic energy, and it allows you to start moving through life gracefully, understanding that the things that are for me will come, and the things that aren't, I let them go. And I'm going to be patient with my journey because I understand that true growth, true evolution, true transformation takes time. And not in the sense of a negative thing, in a beautiful way. It allows you to enjoy the journey a lot more, right? What fun is the journey if tomorrow you wake up and literally everything is fixed and you're at the highest version possible and you can't grow no more? That no, there's so much beauty in the journey of growing. There's so much beauty in the ebbs and flows of life, in the mountaintops and the valleys, right? In the peaks and valleys. So embrace it all. It says being in alignment often feels like nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, your roots are growing. That's so true. A lot of times alignment can look like nothing is happening because you're not in a rushful state. You're not in this needy, desperate state, right? So from the outside looking in, it could look like you're not doing much. You're lazy. You need to be doing more. But in actuality, like we said, true alignment shifts you from focusing on doing more to focusing on being more, right? Because it's your being that attracts things into your life. If you're in the wrong state, energetically, emotionally, it doesn't matter what you do. You're always going to attract things from who you are, not only from what you do, if that makes sense, right? You can do all of the right things externally and still not be in the right state internally, and you probably won't get the most aligned, things back into your life, right? And so it's not just about doing more, right? The doing comes last. It's about internally shifting to a degree into which you're aligned with the desired reality that you want in your head or the vision that you have, right? You're aligned with that emotionally and then acting out of that. It's not about feeling scarcity, feeling lack, and just trying to act your way out of that. It's a very tough thing to do, right? Because what you're being is always going to override what you're doing, right? I hope that makes sense. What you're being is always going to override what you're doing. A lot of people only focus on doing different, doing more, doing this, doing that without ever changing their being, right? When in actuality, it's your being that attracts different people, different situations, different circumstances into your life. So if you're trying to change something externally, it's not about trying to do more externally. It's about getting to the root of that internally, shifting your being to a degree into which it's congruent with the things that you do want to attract and start operating from that place. And I promise you will see a shift in your life. And you won't only see a shift, you'll feel a shift. You'll literally feel different. You will be in the same environment, but you'll feel completely different. You'll start operating differently in the same environment, right? Not to say that your environment doesn't matter, because it absolutely does. Your environment 100% influences how you think, how you feel, and how you act. So if you have the luxury of being able to get out of a very toxic environment or a very limited or contracted environment, you do that by all means necessary, right? But understand that the inner work is the most important thing on the journey. It says, those who honor patience often build something deeper, truer, and longer lasting. That's so true. Patience is a virtue. That's one of the oldest sayings in the book, but it really is. Those who really embody patience, because you're operating from a place of faith, you're operating in a place of alignment, right? When you're really moving in patience, that's where you really allow things to unfold on divine timing. And that's where, when you get into relationships or you get into new opportunities, you move in a way that allows for those things to build a very, very strong foundation, right? Because you're patient. It's the patient pursuit, not the desperate chase, right? A lot of times when you're not patient, you're moving from an energy of desperation and neediness. And whether you realize it or not, when you're in the energy of desperation, you're actually repelling things from you. Who wants to be around desperate energy? Real talk. Who wants to be around desperate energy? Not me. Not you. And not the things that you want to attract into your life, right? So when you're in an energy of patience, patience is a byproduct of you being in an energy of alignment, right? And being in an energy of alignment is about having a really, really strong relationship with yourself, being in tune with who you actually are, learning how to cultivate the right emotions internally, love, gratitude, authenticity, joy, peace, right? Alignment comes out of that. And because you're aligned, a byproduct of that is you're just naturally more patient. You're just naturally more patient with life. Because when you're not desperate, why would you feel the need to rush things? If you're not in an energy of desperation, why would you feel the need to rush things? The reason a lot of people have so much struggle with patience is because they're constantly operating from an energy of desperation and of lack and of scarcity. So you constantly feel the need to get this thing, have that thing, be with this person before you feel whole, before you feel enough, right? And so that gets in the way of you being able to be patient. It's impossible to be patient when you're in an energy of lack, when you're in an energy of scarcity, when you're in an energy of desperation. It's dang near impossible. Real talk. It's dang near impossible. So if you're catching yourself really struggling with patience, look within. Am I more attached to these things in my life? Am I really trying to rush the process, right? It could be a beautiful indication of certain parts of yourself that you need to work on, right? You don't need to beat yourself up, right? We talk about this on this journey of growth and cultivating awareness of the things that you're navigating, the things you have within yourself. Be very mindful of not beating yourself down when you realize certain things about yourself. A lot of times when, people become aware of certain things, oh my God, I can't believe I've been doing that. I can't believe I'm like that. Oh my God, I'm such a this, I'm such a that. No, you're a human being. You're a human being. And you weren't taught growing up what to look for, how to navigate, right? You were born into a world that is very egotistical, very externalistic, right? Very low vibrational. So it's no fault of your own, but now that you know better, choose better, do better, act better, right? Make intentional choices to the best of your ability. It's not about being perfect. It's about progression. Come on. Point number 4, your journey is not meant to look like theirs. I love this. Your journey is not meant to look like theirs. Social media creates a highlight reel that makes you feel like you're behind. But what you're called to do might not be flashy. It might be deeply personal, spiritual, or slow burning. The most beautiful journeys are often the ones no one claps for at first. The most beautiful journeys are often the ones no one claps for at first. Usually the beginning of anything worthwhile, it is a little tough. It is a little difficult. It may be a little bit ugly, right? Nobody's going to clap for that at the beginning. But it's usually those journeys that often turn into the ones that are the most beautiful, right? And so understand you're not late. You're on a completely different track. Different assignments require different timelines. You're on a different assignment. Understand different assignments require different timelines. So if God put you here for a unique one-of-one assignment, and you're judging your life off of other people's journeys and timelines, you're getting in the way of allowing what you were put here to do to really unfold and express itself, because you're judging your unique one-of-one timeline off of somebody else's unique one-of-one timeline, when y'all two timelines are not the same. But you're basing where you are off of somebody else, and because you're not where they are, or your journey doesn't look like what theirs looks like, you feel like you're behind. And now you're chasing after something that you're not even meant for, which leads to what? Unhappiness, which leads to what? Suffering, which leads to what? Getting involved with the wrong people, places, and circumstances, right? Feeling lost, feeling confused. But now that we know, we can have the awareness throughout our life to see, are we falling into the trap of comparison too much? Are we trying to rush the process too much? Is that rushfulness coming from a place of desperation within myself? Ask yourself these questions. Ask yourself these questions. Start to really, really be there with you, right? It's so important, with compassion, with grace, because you're not perfect, and it's okay. You're not meant to be perfect. You're meant to be you, and you is beautiful. Oh, man, like we just said, trying to replicate someone else's journey often pulls you out of your own rhythm and calling. When you try to replicate something that is not meant for you, you are literally trying to do something that you were not made to do. Now I'm going to ask you a follow-up question to that. If you are constantly doing things or trying to do something that you were not made to do you think you will feel peace? Do you think you will feel clarity? Do you think you will feel happy? Do you think you will feel aligned? Probably not. And that's why it's so important to really analyze what we are doing on an everyday basis. Really analyze where our attention and our energy is going on an everyday basis. Because when you start to pinpoint these things, you can start to get to the root of why you feel certain ways, right? Because a lot of people don't get to the root of why they feel certain ways, they think they feel a certain way because they don't have a certain thing externally. And so you go on this chase of trying to get all of these things externally, the money, the cars, the women, the men, whatever it may be, the job, the security, all of these things to feel a certain way. When in actuality, it's stemming from something so much deeper within yourself. And if you would just turn your gaze inward, started putting your attention internally, you would start giving your energy to the things internally, you would start to see a shift. You would start to become aware of things internally, and because you become aware of it, you can now actively work towards shifting areas in your life, shifting your energy, because when you change your energy, you change your life. When you change your energy, you change your life. And not only your energy emotionally, but also your mindset, because when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Mindset, emotional state. Mindset, emotional state. They work in congruence. And point number 5, trusting the unfolding and redefining progress. Progress isn't just external. It's also internal. Sometimes the deepest form of progress is healing, forgiving, growing emotionally, or learning how to be present. When you redefine what figuring it out means, you stop pressuring yourself to perform and start allowing yourself to become. Man, oh man. When you change your perspective, you stop pressuring yourself to perform and you start allowing yourself to become. Man, oh man. That is very profound and very deep. Because a lot of us move in a way where we're constantly performing for the validation and approval of the external world, right? But that's never going to lead to you feeling aligned and you feeling at peace with yourself. But when you focus on becoming all of who you were made to become, you best believe in the process of that journey, you will start to feel more aligned. You will start to feel more at peace because you are literally becoming more aligned. You are becoming more at peace, right? Because they are being ingrained in your being. That is who you are becoming internally, right? And whatever you become internally manifests itself externally. Whatever you become internally will manifest itself externally, right? So if you are seeing things externally that you're not really rocking with, or you want to change certain things, right? Get to the root of it internally. Start to get in tune with your being. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Because how you think impacts how you feel, and how you feel influences how you act, and how you act literally creates your physical reality. Your personality is comprised of how you think, how you feel, and how you act. And your personality creates your personal reality. So if you want to change certain things in your personal reality, we got to get to the root cause of that, which is your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. And it doesn't start with action change. It starts in the internal, the thoughts and the emotions. Once you shift those, your actions are going to naturally change because you're not going to be operating from the same energy, right? And usually your actions are just dictated by the energy that is behind them, right? Internally. It says the more you trust the unfolding of your path, the more aligned opportunities begin to meet you. Absolutely. The more you truly start to trust the unfolding of your path, the more you start to see the right opportunities come to you, right? Because like we said, when you're in the energy of faith, you're naturally going to be in a state of trust, right? You're going to naturally be trusting the unfolding, which is going to lead to you naturally moving in a state of patience, which is going to come from you not feeling desperate or needing things externally, which means you're going to be operating from a place of wholeness. And because you're operating from a place of wholeness, and that is in your being, you're going to start attracting situations, opportunities, and people that are aligned with that wholeness. Come on, man. Come on. This is good, man. This is good. This is deep. This is deep. I hope that really makes sense. It's so profound when it really clicks, right? It's so profound when it really clicks. But man, what a beautiful, beautiful episode. Outside, backyard, calm vibes. Y'all know the vibes. Y'all know how we do, man. But that's going to do it for this episode. That is going to do it for this week's episode. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. We're going to keep on growing, keep on evolving. I'm still in this transition period trying to figure out, I'm in the process of trying to find a place in Syracuse, and it's tough. It's tough. It's tough. Your boy's struggling. I'm like, cause I'm very mindful about, like, you know, where I live and my space and things like that. So, you know, I'm really trying to find something I feel is right. I don't want to just rush into a spot. So I'm in the process of doing that, but you know, we trust him, and we're not chasing. We're taking it day by day, trusting in the unfolding, understanding that everything is going to work out for our highest good. I am not worried about it. It's just something I'm navigating, that's all. But it's going to be a beautiful thing when we get back up there. We can get back to the studio. That's going to be fun. You know, I miss that place with y'all because that's where we really got into the meat and the potatoes of the podcast. So, yeah, appreciate y'all. Love y'all. And remember, most importantly, to take everything with a grain of salt. I will catch you guys next week. Deuces.